In my work, I've been very interested in the way that different cultures represent violence and what it tells you about the culture. For example, if you compare action films in Hollywood and in Hong Kong, you see that it is represented the representation of violence is very, very different. Jackie Chan has talked about this. I mean, he has said that he wouldn't, when he was still in Hong Kong, he said that he wouldn't try to compete with the American, high-tech explosions, because in Hollywood movies, violence tends to be noisy, explosive, and expensive. It's a question of who has the best hardware. But in Hong Kong, the violence very frequently is acrobatic, it's choreographed, and it's about mastery of certain kinds of performative skills. Jackie Chan claims that he was influenced by Buster Keaton, a very acrobatic kind of American silent comedy star, or Fred Astaire, a great dancer. And of course he had his training in the Beijing Opera. So that's one attitude that you see in Chinese films. But in Hollywood films, you don't get that same kind of emphasis. Certainly there's choreography, but it's of a different kind. In many Hollywood action films, and indeed a lot of American popular genres, the violence tends to be comic, no matter what the story is. And that's because the violence tends to be represented with great comic energy. And it's rhythmic, it pulses through the film, and its orchestration of the violence almost competes with the narrative plot line in contextualizing the meaning of the actions. Think, for example, of those classic films from the late 60s, or the mid-60s, Bonnie and Clyde, The Wild Bunch, and A Clockwork Orange. Those were films that were noted as raising violence to a new level. But in each one of those cases, the violence was comic, although the consequences may have been tragic in terms of what happened. And it pulsed through and it was energetic. In many ways, that kind of violence is linked back to the cartoon, and particularly cartoons like Roadrunner cartoons, where there's endless violence and it's energy and happens over and over again, and people are resilient and they keep bouncing back. In Hollywood films, I think that violence is synonymous with action, and action synonymous with violence. And that's important because it means that the opposite of violence is not necessarily peace, but rather boredom.